Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say...
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host mix it up with authors, musicians, and interviews with world-changing people.
Let's begin, pal.
Okay, let's begin now, because it only makes sense.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Frankie Sense and More. I'm so excited that you're here to join me this week, and wow, do we have a great show. Coming up today, you're going to meet two extraordinary ladies. Cindy Crowe of the Blue Sky Community Healing Center is joining us, as well as the delightful author Amy Sorrells will be joining us from Indiana. A big shout out to my twins, Alex and Olivia. Happy birthday. Happy 28 years and 9 months that you've been in my life. I love you both so much. And I just want to say that you have enriched my life with honor, your humor, your creativity, and your love. You guys crack me up. So thanks for choosing me to be your mom. Also, a shout out, Olivia, congratulations on your engagement. Wow. Good one to keep that one a secret. I love that. And this has been a bittersweet week for me as a mom because my other son, Anthony, just broke his arm at work. Not so much fun. He's in a little bit of pain. So let's all give him a little prayer for a quick healing. I just received word from our good friend Than Graffam at the Hope Project International. He's been on the show before. That his partner, Pastor Carlos Sanchez, was injured in a motorcycle accident taking his daughter to school. Now, Pastor Carlos is a leader in his community. He pours his whole life into meeting the needs of others. And Than tells me that everything that Hope Project has done in Cristo Rey, Nicaragua, is a direct result of the pastor's work. He hand-selected 27 families that now received homes through Hope Project in the last 3 years, and those 27 families are made up of 130 people, 47 adults, 83 children that Carlos knows by name. So the work that these families, the work that is done with these families is only a fraction of what Pastor Carlos does on a day-to-day basis in the community. And Than says that at Hope Project, we always talk about changing the world, but Pastor Carlos is doing it. So Pastor Carlos and his wife have 3 children and only one vehicle, that motorcycle. So anytime they want to travel as a family, part of the family goes on a bus and he follows behind on the bike. Now, they have had incidences on the bus where his sons have been assaulted. And last year, his wife got her fingers shut in the bus door. Hope Project International has a line on a used truck that they wish to purchase for the family. And in total, I think with all the appropriate paperwork, tags, and insurance, will cost about $15,000. We're not yet sure how much the medical bills are going to be for Pastor Sanchez, but there is another friend down in Managua who is helping to get the pastor some medicine and trying to find a sling and brace for his shoulder. So if you'd like to help out, please go to www.hopeprojectinternational, which is intl.com/Pastor Carlos. And you can go there and you can donate some money if you want to help with the car or help with his medical bills. I know it would be greatly appreciated. They're just devastated by this injury for him. So as many of my longtime listeners know, Frankie Sense is aligned with the UN Global Goals. And you can read about those goals at www.globalgoals.org. Now, the United Nations has set out these priorities for the next 30 years, and I'm really excited about it. And today we're going to be in alignment with global goal number 10, which is reduced inequalities. And it's perfect because Cindy Crowe, who's with us, is someone who knows a thing or two about inequalities, and she's doing something about it. She's a member of the Lake Helen First Nations Robinson Superior Treaty Area, which is located, as we mentioned, about an hour east of Thunder Bay, and that's in Ontario, Canada. Her spirit name is Standing Strong. I love that. And her clan is Caribou. In her language, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce her name. I'm going to ask her to do that for us in just a minute because I think I almost have it. For 11 years, Cindy has been the founders and executive director, which is the lodge keeper for Clear Blue Sky Traditional Teaching Lodge, which is operating as the Blue Sky Community Healing Center. And her for-profit business, Cindy Crowe Consulting, is now being phased out as all of her time is being spent on the community center. But she specialized as a community liaison, community engagement, and community development counselor. I know she has tons of experience. Cindy, welcome.
Hi.
Give us your name, please, in Ojibwe. Let's hear it.
So bear with me. I was not raised with the culture or the language, so I am also probably not doing a great job, Frankie, of saying my own name. But I love the fact that this is actually my second name I've received. So in the language we would say Memeshkwe Gabawik Nindijnikas, and the Nindijnikas part of it is I'm saying my name is. So it's at the end. Right. It's at the end. So Memeshkwe Gabawik Nindijnikas. So my name is standing strong.
Okay. In the Caribou, is it Adik Nududum?
Very good. So Adik Nindodum. So yeah, the Nindodum part is my clan is.
Okay.
And so we would say that if we were entering into a sweat lodge or at the beginning of a ceremony, you would let the creator know that, yes, this is your name. So then the creator knows who's talking.
Okay. Wow. Well, very good. It's interesting because you do teach the language, the Ojibwe, in your healing center at the community center. Yes. You teach classes in that, and as well as I know that you use the medicine wheel. And what else do you teach at the center?
Yeah, so a variety of things. So our mandate of the center is all about inclusion. So yeah, right. When you talked earlier about reducing inequality, mm-hmm. we're all about accepting all people into our circle. So we're very big about that. Some of what we teach is Indigenous practices. Mm-hmm. So it could be a sharing circle, learning the language, and it's not me that's teaching the language.
But you teach shamanic healing, don't you?
Yes, I do that. And as a lodge keeper, so my role as a lodge keeper is I'm actually creating a warm, comfortable environment for people to share in. That's my role. So that could be in many places.
Right. Wow. Well, you're the mom of 5.
I am the mom of 5. Yes.
And I can hear from just your voice how you would create a welcoming environment. We can hear that.
So I've had some practice doing it, and people that come in every day, they help me to remember a little bit more about why I'm doing this, what makes it so exciting and such a new adventure every single day. And every single day I think I get a little bit better at remembering, who I am and why I'm here, and to always make sure that this space is available for whoever needs it. I always want to make sure of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said that you weren't raised. You were raised with an Indigenous worldview or not?
I was not.
Okay, so you were not. Where did you grow up?
So my father is the Indigenous parent in the family. Okay. He has also mixed heritage. So his dad, so my grandfather was French Cree from northern Manitoba. Okay. Well, some people would automatically think that, but Métis is a very distinct culture.
Okay.
So he saw himself, as a Cree person, and then my grandmother was Ojibwe. So that's on my dad's side, and then on my mom's side, her grandmother came straight from England. So definitely mixed heritage, and sure. Because of the way that my father was raised without the culture as well, he chose not to have us involved with it, not even to take an interest in it. He was very afraid of it. He's still very afraid of it.
Interesting.
So I was raised as a Roman Catholic.
Okay. So when did you become involved? Like, when did you kind of wake up and go, I need to get back in touch with my people?
So I remember the day very clearly. It was the day my first child was born. So the day my daughter Cynthia was born in 1981, a couple of things hit me. One was, instantly becoming a parent, realizing all the crappy stuff I had done to my own parents growing up. It was like, oh my God. how can you guys even still love me? I was just such a rotten kid. I remember that hitting me. And the other thing that I remember is this drumming started to happen in my heart. And I was trying to figure out, what is this all about? What is going on with me? And somehow instinctively knowing that I needed to get back to the Lakehead. I needed to move back here to Thunder Bay and get in touch with my roots. Now, that didn't happen. It didn't happen until about 15 years later. But nonetheless, I mean, the history speaks for itself. Now I was able to get in touch with my culture, and now I have the great pleasure of sharing that with other Indigenous people as well as non-Indigenous people. And I'm super grateful.
Now, did you live up north before you joined the...
Yeah, so I wasn't that far away. I spent the majority of my life in Sudbury, which is not that far from. Yeah, but it's about 12 hours.
12 hours, yeah.
Yeah, it's about 12 hours away. So yeah, not very far away. And I remember growing up in Sudbury feeling like I did not belong there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it did not feel comfortable to me.
Interesting. So. Tell us, for those who don't know, how many nations are in First Nations?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's a lot. It's mind-boggling, really. How many nations we're blessed with. But if you were to, let's say, break it down into treaty areas, we have 5 treaty areas in Ontario.
Right.
And the largest being Anishinaabe-Aski Nation, which actually makes up 2/3 of the province of Ontario. And I bet there's a lot of people that don't know that.
Yeah.
Is
that the Joseph Brant, the Brantford area people?
No. That's another one. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So so
you know what? I'm gonna have to stop you because we're gonna go to commercial in 30 seconds.
Sorry.
But I am interested in finding out a little bit more because it's interesting. I don't think that they call them First Nations in the U.S. and maybe our friend in the U.S. Amy can tell us about that. But if you're listening, you don't want to go anywhere because, man, we have a lot to talk about. And as diverse as these two ladies seem on the surface, I think they have a lot in common. And we're going to find out all about that in just a few minutes. So stay tuned, stay close, don't go anywhere.
Just getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
Secret Cuisines and Sacred Rituals is a quest, a place, and a feast. Join host Vilasi Venkatachalam every week to explore myths, mystique, old medicine, and brilliant modern solutions through a dazzling kaleidoscope of cuisines, cultures, and cures. This is the place where tribes gather, strangers and familiars, to be memory keepers and makers of our evolving, enduring, evergreen, spoken legacy of wisdom and ingenuity. In Velasi's words, when we do old things in new ways and new things in old ways, we paint with an inspired palette, weave our own healing traditions, and become our own guru. Vilasi is a troubadour of secret cuisines and sacred rituals. She collects stories of wisdom, ingenuity, and grit. She believes wellness and transformation happen when you stand at the threshold of delight and discovery. She displays her hidden penchant for drama when she leads the safari at the supper club. Her favorite pastime is to extol the marvels of cuisines, cultures, and cures. To her audience in workplaces, seminars, and salons, her mantra is, be your own guru. She is a biochemist, botanist, and alchemist who likes to churn delightful, useful things from a brew of art and science, ancient and evolving, old medicine, and new cures. Join Vilasi every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here on the Woohoo Radio Network.
This is the TogiNet Radio Network, broadcasting quality programming to the world.
Welcome to Geraldine Tegelov Live, the show that shares with you the secrets of redefining, reinventing, and rebuilding your life. Having pulled herself from the rubble of financial ruin and having gone on to create a highly successful career, Geraldine has become an expert in the art of transformation. She believes that it doesn't matter where you are right now, how overwhelmed you feel, or how impossible the task of turning your life around may seem. You can do it. Stay tuned as metaphysician, international best-selling author, and intuitive Geraldine Tegelov gives you the inner understanding and the outer practical how-to to create your amazing life. Gain a fresh perspective on how to redefine, reinvent, and rebuild your life. Join Geraldine Tegelove live every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the TogiNet Radio Network.
Okay, and we're back, and we're going to have a more conversation with Cindy, but I do want to introduce you to Amy because she's an interesting woman, and we want to bring her in on the conversation.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It said, Amy, that you write for Words of Hope for Hurting World, and you're a winner of the 2012 Women of Faith Writing Contest, a two-time ACFW Genesis Awards semifinalist. Amy got her start writing in journalism for medical publications and enjoyed a 3-year stint as a weekly op-ed columnist for her town newspaper. And her passion for healing is also reflected in her role as a registered nurse for a large hospital. And when she's not writing or reading, she can be found barehanded in the garden with dirt or covered in paint while refurbishing antiques. And a graduate of DePaul University, Amy lives with her husband, 3 sons, and a gaggle of golden retrievers. We have that in common in central Indiana. Yeah. Beautiful. Your dogs are so cute, I have to say.
Yeah, they are. And I don't put pictures of my kids and my husband on social media, so that's why my social media is full of them.
Yeah. Well, I just finished reading your third novel, Lead Me Home. Such a beautiful book, really. And it's interesting. I was reading a little review that somebody had done. But first, I just want to say this. Your hope for the book was that for any person who picks it up that feels they're too small or too broken or too invisible to matter in life, to know that they matter. Not only do they matter, they are essential and beautiful and important. Now, that is quite something. Quite a statement, Amy.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. Don't you, Cindy?
I do.
I mean, to read a book, to pick up a book of fiction and hope that, that reader can find themselves and can find hope through your words. And they do find hope. I mean, you don't shy away from any topic. I'll tell you that. The book is filled with real struggle and strong emotion. But you really do talk about the messy things in life. You talked about abuse of women in a marriage. You talked about, morality and suicide. As a nurse, I guess you see a lot of that.
Maybe that's where my nursing rubs off, because people always ask me why or if I'm ever going to write, medical books, and I think I'm too close to it to actually write books in that genre. But I think all of the things that I've seen in my 20 plus years of nursing just make me realize I think there's a lot more people that feel, not beautiful and too small and too broken. There's a lot more of those folks in the world than there are of the ones that media and just media in general would have us believe. So yeah.
Now you've lived in Indiana your whole life.
I have.
And for those who don't know, it's through the Hoosier State. Whatever that is, I don't know.
What Hoosier State? There's a lot of debate. We don't know what it is either. There's a lot of myths and stuff.
Come hell or high water. Okay.
Yeah, and then we're getting ready for our big, huge race, which most of the time, if I'm out of Indiana, people will ask about the Indy 500, which is the 100th running of it this year. So I have to make sure I mention that because it's something.
Yeah. So. I've been to the Indy once, but it'd be
fun.
Have you? Mm-hmm. So do you do a big, does every household do a big thing, or do you all go en masse, or just watch it on TV, or how does it work out for you guys?
I grew up going to the race almost every year, and then once I started having kiddos, once you have kiddos, that kind of changes a lot of things, which, not for the negative, it's just that kind of got out of the habit of going to the track. Sure. But, generally cookouts and listening on the radio is a big tradition, so.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. In your book, you talk. It kind of centers on a small town where there's a pastor whose wife had died. So he's struggling with, really still after a couple of years overcoming the death of his spouse. And now his teenage daughter, who has struggled with the death of her mom, is kind of, hormones and acting out and all that stuff that girls do as they're hitting their teens. And as you talked about today, you had a couple of weeks ago, there was a tornado, and in your book, there's a big storm that kind of changes everything. Mm-hmm. So life imitates art, imitates life.
It does. It does. Yeah, they say write what you know, and so
Do you
a lot
live
of
in
the
a small
things in
town?
here. I live on the outskirts in a suburb of Indianapolis, but the book was inspired by my cousins who have a dairy farm just about 5 miles from here. And I grew up going there and watching them do their work. And so my other two books were based in Michigan and Alabama, and I wanted to for this third one to be closer to home. And
my husband's relatives have a dairy farm in Idaho. And I did identify with, all the hard work that these two kids, especially, that they had to go out and do every single day. And the younger son had such a passion for music and really wanted to become a musician, and was actually called to Nashville to interview and to, show up and see what they could do with his music. But his older brother had some kind of was mentally challenged in some way. You don't say what it is in the book, I don't think, but can't speak. And so he feels this pressing need to stick around for his mom and his brother, even though he's the younger son, and maybe not have his dream come true. Have you known that in your own life? Or did your children go through anything like that?
No, but I think I've seen it. I think I've seen it in other people, and probably there again, is where the nursing comes into play, where life, you want your life, or you imagine your life going one way, but the life has a way of throwing wrenches in that, despite our best intentions. So while I haven't necessarily had that happen to me firsthand, I feel like I've seen enough people going through that it rang true.
You talk about the theme of brokenness in the book, about people being broken. What would that encompass to you?
I think a lot of the characters in this book have examples of that going on. You have the character Noble's mom, whose husband left her. You have Noble, who of course that was his dad who left him. And again, with Noble's mom, her name's Lori. She has Eustace, who is mentally challenged, and so there's a broken dream. None of us imagines that we're going to have kids who struggle, and so that's
sure.
a lifelong thing. And then, of course, there's James, who lost his wife, and he's losing his church, and so and just the small town life in general. Where I grew up kind of wanting to live in a small town, but I feel like the folks that I meet from small towns wish that they were other places.
Always. Yeah. And Cindy, you grew up in Sudbury, which is kind of small town-ish, but I imagine living on, in a reservation area, like it's kind of even more small town because everybody knows everybody in what you're doing. Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very small town. So yeah, the little place that I grew up in Sudbury, it's called Val-Canon. It's a very French community, very small.
Okay.
And north, just a little north of Sudbury, and it would be similar to a reserve, because reserve living is exactly that. I mean, you know everybody, right? You know everybody. Kids can't get away with anything because somebody else would have. Somebody's going to tell your parents what you were up to, for sure.
When you think of a small town, Amy, small town living, that idea that you wanted to move to a small town, what was it that appealed to you? Was it that everybody would know you?
I think in a way it was, the idea of walking down the street and being able to know the people in the cars who are passing by, and for them to know me, and Yeah, I think there is. As it can be a detriment, but I think there's a quaintness about it that's appealing as well.
Yeah. I lived in both, and in the summers we had a farm, and so I lived in a little town of Newcastle, and everybody knew who we were. I'm not sure I like that so much. I kind of prefer a little bit of it. I mean, I love people, but I don't like everybody knowing everything I'm doing.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to be anonymous sometimes too. Sometimes,
yeah. Yeah. But, on where you live, Cindy, just I like the idea, though, of community helping community. And I did have my kids in a small community like that where I don't know how it happened, but we lived on a cul-de-sac where all the moms had kids at the same time. There was a park across from our street, and no matter who was there, they would look after that other person's child. They would discipline that child. They would give them food if they needed it. They would, come with me. You got a boo-boo, I'll fix it. There was none of let's go find your mom. It was just we're community and we'll look after one another. That was beautiful. And I've never sensed that again anywhere. But that I think it does take a village sometimes. And it's nice if you can have that.
Yeah, I agree. We don't really have that in Thunder Bay. I agree with you. I like the small community style way of living. Yeah, you don't really have that here. I mean, people don't really know their neighbors here.
Okay. I don't know my neighbors
I
here.
like how, Frankie, how you said that Cindy and I would have more in common than maybe we would think that we did. And I love, Cindy, how you were talking about the mission of your organization for community and inclusion and acceptance. And I think a lot of those things are portrayed in the book. But I think the characters aren't willing to. They don't want that. They're comfortable in their independence. But it's only when they realize how much they need each other that really, some pretty neat things start to happen.
Well, we're going to go to a break very soon. How soon are we going? In 15 seconds. But I want to come back and talk about that because you raised a very good point. Amy, and I'm going to bridge this now because you're a bridge builder, Cindy. I'm going to bridge this for Amy and yourself. How you guys are more similar than not. Here we go.
Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
Congratulations on being the proud owner of an adorable, soft, cuddly, sweet-smelling, smiling, cooing, hungry, tired, gassy, screaming little bundle of joy. So now what? Where's the owner's manual for this thing? Where are my instructions? Right here. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet.com. Infant care specialist Blythe Lipman has worked with babies for over 20 years and works extensively with new parents, providing workshops, in-home visits, tips, and daily phone calls to ease those frazzled nerves. With Baby and Toddler Instructions, you can get the advice you need on how to survive and enjoy your baby's first year. For more information on Blythe and how she can help you, go to babyinstructions.com. From 32 ways to stop a baby from crying to 14 ways to get a baby to eat and so much more. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet.com.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
What is healthy living? A good checkup at the doctor's office? Choosing to eat a big salad full of vegetables instead of a greasy hamburger? Attending a yoga class instead of sitting at a theater movie with fat-laden buttery popcorn and candy? All of these are good steps to healthy living. Living a healthy lifestyle is all about the choices we make every day, all day. It's choosing good, nutritious, low-calorie food instead of processed food. It's selecting a brisk walk for 30 minutes instead of playing on the computer for that time. It's being active with your children instead of sitting on the sofa watching TV. The small decisions we make every day is what builds a healthy life. Choose long life with energy, mobility, a positive outlook, and well-being by choosing to live a healthy life. I'm Annette Hammond.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking around. We're talking to Cindy Crowe and Amy Sorrells, and I'm so glad that we are. And just before we took off, I said that I was going to bridge make a bridge for these two ladies to find their common ground. And it left me. So I'm going to apologize because that's how live radio works. Okay. but I know that you see it. I think, we talked about, people kind of losing their way and finding their way home. That is a theme in the book, and people thinking that they want to go away and then coming home. And that's a theme in your book, Amy. And I think, Cindy, that's kind of what you did, in your own life. You wanted to come back home to your people, and you're trying to help your people understand why they should come home too.
Absolutely. And I think that's applicable for any culture or any heritage, because, if I've learned anything through this experience and this journey, is that we need to know our roots. We need to know where we come from, because, until you know where you come from, it's really hard to move forward. And so that doesn't mean necessarily that people are going to adopt that culture that they're from, but you still need to know where you come from. You need to have that awareness.
I think
my second novel, called Then Sings My Soul, I did a ton of research into my family's history, and actually learned that there's a 99% chance that we have some Eastern European Jewish roots. And that was just like, I was
what was your percentage of that?
Like 90, I'm 99% sure, as sure as I can be as far as the records I could trace. And then knowing that they came from that area of
See, I'm 99% European Jewish, Eastern European Jewish.
Oh, well, I'm like
I had my DNA tested on Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when it came back.
Yeah, it was profound for me to learn about that, and just especially growing up as a Christian, and just understanding that Christianity came from Judaism as well. And
right.
I just absolutely love the Old Testament and the teachings there, and it was just so neat. So Cindy, I absolutely agree with what you say. It's pretty important.
Yeah.
And you were raised Catholic, Cindy.
Yeah, so both my parents were Roman Catholic, and that's how I was raised. And I think that for some period in my life that did provide me with some comfort, but there was as I started to become a teenager and then a young adult, I don't know, it always felt like there was something missing in my life, and I just couldn't figure out what the missing part was. And so, again, through this journey of discovering my roots, I figured out where the missing pieces were, and it all sort of magically came together. And then I was able to make some decisions about, okay, so now that I know that, now where do I want to go? How do I want to move forward? And it wasn't too long before I realized that, I was going to be the bridge for people. I was going to help people make those discoveries as well through a variety of vehicles. And I always say, it doesn't matter to me which vehicle people use. That has no bearing on my focus. It's just that I'm helping them in some way.
Tell us a bit about the shamanic healing. I'm interested in the work that you do in that.
So for me, being a shaman to me is about being connected to the earth. So the earth elements help people to identify certain areas that need attention. And for me, my messengers are the animals. So I should have some kind of a bumper sticker on my truck that this truck stops abruptly if an animal is spotted. Like I'm always cognizant of who's around me. And so that's how I view shamanic work. It's paying attention to the messages that are happening to you. And, maybe they hear something from your radio show. Maybe they see a commercial on TV. Maybe they notice that there's a penny on the sidewalk in front of them. I mean, there could be so many different ways that people could receive a message. The only thing that I'm trying to promote out there is that we all need to be paying attention to those messages. You need to be listening to yourself. If you're not listening to yourself, then you're not honoring that true essence of yourself in whatever that is. Maybe it means that, you should be painting. Maybe like Amy and yourself, maybe that means you're writing. Maybe it means you want to travel around the world. Everybody has a passion. And if we were all following our passions, this would be such a different world.
I agree. And, it's funny that you say that about the animals, because I'm the one who prays as I go down a road, and I tell the animals, stay off the road. I don't want to hit you. And my husband wrote a song. He wrote a song about, how she prays for little animals on the side of the road, because I've done it my whole life, ever since I was a tiny, tiny little girl. I don't know where it came from, because I'm not religious, but I've always prayed for the souls of little animals.
There you go.
Yeah, it's crazy. I always thought I was Native, and I'm not, obviously, because I had my DNA tested, but I'm sure it was from a past life. And it was interesting because I was watching a show, and they were Lakota, and they were speaking, and it was like almost like I understood the language, but I don't. But it felt so familiar in my mouth, kind of. It was really weird. I thought, well, maybe that, past life, because I am a hypnotherapist, metaphysical hypnotherapist. I do past life. I thought, well, maybe there's another life. But it's so interesting because I just feel I've always felt connected.
I think that's the spiritual connection that we all feel, and it's like the experience you have when you meet somebody for the first time, and somehow you feel so connected to this person.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course, because your spirits are connected, and so there is that familiarity. There is that, that, I don't know. It's like a comfort. It's like, you just feel so good when you're around this person. Yeah, it's.
Well, they say you travel with soul groups and you meet them again in different lifetimes, and you feel so connected. What do you, Amy? How do you feel about that? Do you believe in past life or anything like that?
I don't believe in past life, those and that and like sense? Those kind of things. But in that sense. But I believe that kind of the things that you guys are talking about is the way I perceive it is it's the Holy Spirit. And as you were talking, I was thinking about a recent reviewer wrote about Lead Me Home that she was mad that close your ears if you don't want a spoiler.
Yes, it was Frankie Sense. Go ahead. Whatever you want.
So anyway, they were mad because Noble does not go off to Nashville, and they were really upset about that because they're like, who in their right mind wouldn't take the record deal and move their family and all this kind of stuff? But then in the book, there's the part where Noble is talking about that, and he says, he's like, he can't fully explain why that he's deciding to stay at home. He says, but I know I'm supposed to stay here. It's like knowing a ring around the moon means rain, that thunder in February means frost in May, that it's time to plant corn when the oak leaves are the size of a squirrel's ear, and that a red sky in the morning means you better take cover because the storm will roll in by mid-afternoon. And so it's like you were saying, paying attention to the things that are around you, and that's kind of another theme in the novel is when we feel, I think sometimes when we feel like we're the smallest, that's when we can notice the most around us and the things that we're supposed to notice, if that makes sense. Yeah,
in the despair. Well, St. Francis says, where there's despair, there's hope. And I mean, I felt that way in a way, like as a musician, I'm a musician too, and I'm like, take the record deal, dude. Like, wow. Yeah. Who wants to get up every morning at 3 a.m. and feed cows for the next 50 years? But he realized that it was his home. He realized that was his, even though he thought his destiny was somewhere else, maybe he could still play music, but home is home. And some people like to go away from home, and some people like home. And he decided that, like he said, God, how come you're talking to me now? Like, what about the first, 18 years of my life, where were you? But he really felt that he was connecting with the universe and that they were telling him to stay. Like you work in a hospital, you must have seen miracles and stuff. I know that I've interviewed so many doctors and surgeons and neurosurgeons who've said, they didn't believe in an afterlife, or they didn't believe in, anything metaphysical. And yet the things that they've seen during a surgery, they knew that it wasn't their hand guiding them. They knew that, these people had died and come back, and, it wasn't them. So have you seen or witnessed anything in the hospital that you thought, wow?
I can't think of anything in particular, except that when I work with adults, and sometimes I'll be there when somebody passes, that it is like, it's really beautiful. Like, I think there's such a big part of society that tries to hide death, and we make it sterile, and we don't see it very often. But really, and that's kind of what my second book talks about that to a certain extent too. But just helping people die well, because it's like ushering them into eternity, especially from my perspective, if they're believers, and just that there's a definite pause that happens after they take their last breath, and it's just kind of the whole room is full of it, and it's hard to explain, but it's definitely real.
Yeah. I have an author coming up shortly. She's a nurse, Yvonne Heath, and she wrote a book, Love Your Life to Death, and she's going to talk about the beauty of death, because she worked in palliative care and worked with a lot of people who, obviously have died on her watch, and she wanted to tell people to talk about that, before they go. And it's kind of interesting, the idea. Death doesn't frighten me. I think what frightens me, and that's what I love about the idea of reincarnation, is that it's so hard to imagine that you're erased, that you're just gone, like you've never been. That whole thing is too profound for me to even comprehend sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that I don't believe that we actually die. I believe that our energy has always existed, and it always will exist. It just morphs into, different manifestations of itself. Sure. But we're always the same. So I absolutely believe in past lives and future lives, although I'm learning now that they're all happening at the same time. And of course, that's a big conversation, but that's my understanding now, is that because I'm having experiences in my dreams where I'm realizing, oh wow, I'm in one of those other realms or lives right now.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Well, we're going to go to a break, but if you want to expand on that, that'd be kind of neat when we come back. This is our last break. You're listening to Frankie Sense and More. I am your host, Frankie Picasso. We have Cindy Crowe and Amy Sorrells, and we're having a great conversation, and we hope that you'll stick around and join us. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
We're just getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
If you could live your life truly standing in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, wouldn't that make your heart soar? Now you can, with Lessons in Joyful Living, with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi, Mondays at noon Central. Kimberly Rinaldi, having created a highly successful coaching practice, now teaches lessons in joyful living. She believes in empowering others, and that through it, you have the ability to break through any and all barriers, thus allowing you to reach your greatest potential and joyfully step into your life's purpose. What used to take weeks, months, or even years, she can now teach you in a matter of hours with her programs. For more on Kim and her show, go to her website, KimberlyRinaldi.com. That's RINALDI.com. Then join us for Lessons in Joyful Living with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
A common food myth is that bread will make you fat. The truth is quite the opposite. If you eat the right kinds of breads and other grains, you can actually lose weight. The fiber found in whole grain foods helps slow digestion, keeping you fuller longer. True whole grain bread products will have whole grain or whole wheat flour as the first ingredient. If you see anything else, it is not what you want to eat, even though it may say wheat. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that overweight people who acquired all of their grain servings from whole grains lost more belly fat than those who skipped the whole grains. You should still avoid refined grains like enriched flour, but a moderate amount of whole grain bread can be a great asset to a balanced diet. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
Okay, and we're back with Frankie Sense. I want to make sure that folks can reach you two girls. So, Amy, give us your website, please.
It's Amy K. Sorrells or amyksorrells.com. I recently changed it.
So it's SORRELLS, so RRL, amyksorrells.com. Yep. And Cindy?
So Blue Sky Community Healing Center, all one word, .ca.
Awesome. I did want to ask you about what you meant by indigenous worldview.
Yeah, so it's a fairly long explanation, but I'll just give you a short version. So you mentioned the word Aboriginal earlier in our conversation, and Aboriginal is not really seen as a favorable term by Indigenous people here in Ontario or in Canada.
Okay.
And so those are one of the things that you could actually learn by attending one of our courses. So our courses are One Tribe, Indigenous Worldview, and Diversity Coaching, and you can go to our website for more information. But Indigenous Worldview is simply a perspective from the Indigenous viewpoint. So, if I was a French person, then I could give you a French worldview, but I'm giving you an Indigenous worldview to help you to understand
where you
not only the culture, but but practices in general, sort
right.
of, and for business people, like for the industries and government, if you're looking to work with Indigenous communities and wanting a better understanding and what would be seen as being respectful, then we can give you those tips and give you some guidance on how to do that.
Very important
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, I know as a coach, and I taught coaching at the International Coach Academy around the world. And so depending upon, like for the Chinese, for example, to ask them anything personal is extremely rude. But how do you coach somebody when you can't ask them something personal, right? It's kind of, it's interesting, but you have to know that. Or a woman can't ask this or do that. Yeah. So it's interesting how, what goes on. And for you, Amy, all of this is just such great fodder for another book, right?
It is. Yes, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
But one of the things that Cindy mentioned too about her center is that her intentions or goals is to make it a warm and comfortable place for sharing. And
yes.
I think we've even been doing a little bit of that today as we kind of have. I think we've gotten pretty real on some issues, and it just it reminds me again about how just the setting of this book lent itself to showing how much community and being authentic with each other matters. And there's a scene in there where James, whose church is dying, is talking to another pastor whose church is doing pretty well, and it talks about how they were arguing over Bible translations and wrestling with God's grace and even cursing a little bit about the taking of a wife too soon. And then it says that they could be plain men in front of each other, and that in itself was a blessing to James, for it had been too long since he felt the robes of his calling lift enough for him to come out from under them and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So
important.
I think
because people expect they keep a pastor or somebody like that to a higher standard, and they're just men or women. Like, they're just human beings who, decided or had a calling to do something, but it doesn't mean that they're better or worse than anybody else. It just means that, you're a writer and he's a pastor. And, and so we go, oh, it's even worse if they did something, but not really. Yeah. And he needed an outlet to be able to talk to somebody man to man, or just human being to human being. And so he chose this other pastor to do that. And I'm wondering also, Cindy, in your role as lodge keeper, I'm thinking, okay, you were Catholic. Now you have this other view and perspective about life and, God or the universe or whatever. How do you blend those two together? I mean, you don't have to give up one to accept the other, do you?
That's exactly my belief. I don't believe that you can't. Yeah. Why can't you marry all of these together? But yet there are people that have been taught that, if you are following traditional spirituality practices, you are not able to go to church and vice versa. And so that causes a lot of friction and confusion and hard feelings between people and families and communities by having that viewpoint. So yeah, again, we're all about bringing all people together. I look at it like this. Life should be like a potluck. I don't know if you guys call it a potluck, but we call it a potluck. Yep. And when people come together for a potluck, we're not criticizing one person because all they brought was a bag of buns. Maybe that's all they could afford was a bag of buns. And so we welcome them to the potluck and we accept them because that's proper potluck etiquette. Same thing is we wouldn't criticize someone for how they made their beans. Maybe that's how they make their beans. If I don't like it, it doesn't mean that I have to eat it, but I'm still going to welcome them to the dinner. And so I would like people to get back to that sort of a practice of potluck etiquette. We should be accepting all people to the table and welcoming them and having a discussion, right? Having an open discussion, because food is a common denominator. It's very, very important when you're bringing different cultures together to have food there.
Right. It was interesting, Ben, you'll remember this from Tuesday, but on my show on Tuesday, I had the president of Biola University, and he wrote a book called Love, Kindness. And he said you have to have a hard center and soft edges. And what he meant by that was you keep your values and what you believe in, at the core of you. But the softness is allowing yourself to engage with other people of different cultures and different beliefs. And not that you have to believe everything that they believe, because you've got your hard center where you believe what you believe, but you're able to actively listen. You're able to accept them as them and for who they are, not necessarily meaning that you have to get rid of what you believe in and accept what they want you to accept. So I think that was a really good example that we can believe what we believe, but be accepting of other people.
Yeah, and honoring that person's journey.
And honoring that person's journey, yeah.
Exactly. Maybe it's not for me, but maybe it's an absolutely perfect journey for them. So,
but it's interesting to hear it.
Yeah, and who am I to judge another person's journey? So...
Right.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Too often people will turn off and they'll go, I don't want to hear about that. It has nothing, I don't want, racism is bad. I don't want to hear about it, but you have to hear about it. You have to listen.
That's who they are.
That's who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I met this woman who was the only Jew left in Poland alive. And she was the only Jew left in Poland alive after the war because she was raised Catholic by her adoptive family, and they didn't tell her that she was Jewish until maybe she was 6 or 7 years old. And she loved Jesus so much. She loved going to, church, the Catholic Church, so much. And then her relatives came from America, and they were like Orthodox Jews, like so difficult to, bridge that. And today, she travels the world and she's been to Israel like 3 times, but she loves both. She goes, why can't I love Jesus and love, my Jewish heritage? And she can.
Yeah. Yep.
And she can.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. It may not be a common practice, and it may not be approved by all, but oh well, sucks to be them,
Yeah, yeah. People, they get very, these hard edges instead of the soft edges, and the hard edges don't allow you to allow other people to be themselves, authentic. And that's what's, I think part of what's wrong today is that people are craving to be authentic. They're craving to be themselves and not be judged by everybody. Like, we're only judging everybody because we're not confident in ourselves.
Yeah, Amen, Frankie.
Yeah. Thank you. And hallelujah, too.
Yeah.
Well, it's true, right? I mean, I love learning about Indigenous people. I love learning about, the Hoosiers and the milking of the cows. I mean, everything in your book okay, I don't go to church, but it doesn't mean I don't want to hear about a dying church and about, the struggles and what people feel and what it feels like to go to that church and for everybody to know who you are. And this pastor kept saying, I saw that empty seat, but I didn't go after them. And he kind of felt bad because he was wrapped up in his own head. He should have, gone out and said, hey, why don't you come anymore, Cindy? Did I miss the boat on something? Is there something I did that, you don't want to come here anymore?
Yeah.
That was a good point, Amy. Good point in the book. Because we do have to nourish and nurture people and ask, aren't we feeding them?
Yeah.
In the biblical sense, right?
Yeah.
And food is the great denominator. We all come together for food. Nobody says no to food. If you have a meeting, all you have to do is have food and people will show up, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's how you get them there. So speaking of food, I'm kind of curious. What's a Hoosier food? What's a big? And I should say I lived in Louisville. I went to high school in Louisville.
Okay.
And I think I remember like hush puppies was kind of our thing. But so what would a Hoosier food be? What do you guys
goodness.
For?
Well, I think this is just my personal opinion.
Sure.
I think it's anything pork related, pulled pork, pork burgers, bacon. We actually, I think we are one of the leading pork producing states in the union, so definitely anything like that.
Okay.
When I think of Hoosier food, I think of state fair food.
Okay.
Which is probably about as healthy as we are in comparison to other states as well.
And I have
sadly,
to tell you, Cindy, every time, and Amy, every time I go by a truck with pigs in it, I tell the pigs, I have a little conversation with them and I thank them, and I tell them not to be too scared because they're very sensitive pigs, They are. They're very sensitive. What would a native food be up where you are?
So for me, I'm vegan, so I don't do meat, but definitely wild meats are popular here. So moose or deer, and something a little more my style would be like a wild rice and blueberries or pies, of course. Fresh pies.
Nice.
And they called the another popular one is the Three Sisters.
Right.
So yeah.
What's the Three Sisters?
What's the Three Sisters?
It's like, I think it's like beans, squash, and corn.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And have you been vegan your whole life?
No, just in the last several years. And another popular one is bannock. I can't forget to mention
I was going to say bannock. Yeah. Yeah. Which is like a bread kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like a biscuit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got 30 seconds left to the show, so let me thank both of you ladies so much for coming on. I really appreciate you speaking with me and having a conversation with me, and you're both so delightful. And I really hope that everybody checks out your book, Lead Me Home. And Cindy, I hope people come and check out Blue Sky Community Healing Center because I think you're both doing great and wonderful things in the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Frankie.
You.
And thanks, Ben, for producing this show. And all of you, thank you for tuning in each and every week. I do love you. And we will see you again next week.
Hit Rash Production.
Shit, now you be the one way to turn my world.